On the button, please stand for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed, say nay. All right. Moving on, we have our new superintendent, Dr. Christine Michael, is on Zoom. She is at a conference this evening, getting prepared for the next school year. So, with that said, we are going to do the oath of office. Now, Christine, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sweet. Okay. If you would raise your hand and repeat after me.
Okay.
Is that how we do it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
You just
All
start
right.
here.
Say I. What?
Can you speak louder?
Yeah. I, Christine Michael.
I can hear you.
All right. Say I, Christine Michael. Repeat after me, Christine. Is it not up? Can you hear me?
Christine, can you hear Eric?
Now I can't, unfortunately.
Are you green?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm green. Make sure. Can you hear me now? Is that better, Christine?
I can hear you very faintly.
Got it, Deidre? Can you hear me? Or should I go back there? Okay.
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 Oh, we can.
Jackie's bringing you to the front of the room, Christine.
There we go, perfect.
Technology is amazing. All right. Repeat after me, Christine. I, Christine Michael,
I, Christine Michael,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Washington,
and will faithfully perform the duties of the superintendent of the North Mason School District number 403
and will faithfully perform the duties of superintendent of North Mason School District number 403
in the county of Mason, state of Washington, according to the best of my abilities.
in the county of Mason, state of Washington, according to the best of my ability.
All righty. Well, by the power vested in me, you are now the superintendent.
Effective July 1st.
Effective July 1st. So, thank you, Christine.
Hey.
All right. All right, Jackie. Do we have any comments, Jackie, on the board?
Do not have any comments.
Okay. Moving on, student board members. What do we got? What do we got? Emily, Miss Graduated Emily, what you
Yes.
got?
Graduation was not what I expected. I don't know. I don't know what you expect, but it was like I didn't cry as much as I thought. I thought I was good. Like, I cried when Mr. Marecki hugged me, but that was like it. Like, I don't know. I was more like fulfilled than sad. I was very more eager to just like get into the world than like stay in high school. I finally got all my thank you cards done over this week. And I don't know, it's just very nice. There was a weight that lifted off my shoulders. I'm excited for the next step, but I'm definitely sad to be leaving what I have accomplished here. But it's
Very
exciting.
good. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It was awesome to watch you walk across the stage.
Yes. Yeah. I wish Leanne was here, so I can thank her.
You'll run into her again.
Oh, yeah.
Town,
Yeah.
for sure.
What you got?
Congratulations, Emily. I'm excited to be senior representative. I don't have a lot else to say. Summer sports already kicking off. Soccer had, I think, like 4 or 5 tournaments this weekend, so that was really And yeah, I'm excited for a new board member too, but I'm also really sad to see Emily go.
Very much so. Very much so. She will be sorely missed, Emily.
I quite liked it. I think.
I liked you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
Don't we need to pull out the one?
Yes, pull out the last one.
Okay, I make a motion. Where is it?
To approve.
I don't see it.
To approve the consent agenda, then we can modify it, right?
Oh, okay, I found it. All right, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Right. All right. Any discussion, which I will start with, I need to pull myself out of J, the collective bargaining agreement with PSE.
Okay.
So if we want to modify it,
So I'll modify the motion to approve the consent agenda except for item J, collective bargaining agreement, PSE, and we would vote on that
Okay.
separate.
all right. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as written, with the exception of J, the collective bargaining agreement with PSE, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, aye as well. And then, do you want to do the motion for the next one?
I make a motion that we approve the collective bargaining agreement with PSE, which stands for Public School Employees.
Can I say all in favor?
Vice Chair.
Yeah, you got to say all in favor.
Yeah.
All in favor of approving item J, collective bargaining agreement with public school employees, please say aye.
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 All right. That is approved. Okay, now, moving on to the second consent agenda. These are things that we have to get signed over to Christine as the new superintendent effective July 1st. So do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda superintendent signature authority resolutions?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda of superintendent signatory authority resolutions as presented, effective July 1st, 2025.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye as well. Hearing none opposed. Moving on to the Community Bond Advisory Committee presentation. Who do we have?
Okay, so we have, Cassie is online,
Okay.
and Sam from Wenaha Group is also here, and two members of our community advisory group are here to be part of that presentation, Dr. Don LePere and Kat Ross.
Okay.
Okay?
And who is Cassie?
She's with the Winnaha Group. So does Cassie want to start, or you coming up here?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so thanks for having us. I'm Cassie Hibbert with Winnaha Group, and my colleague Sam Hyatt is there in the room with you. So we are going to go through the presentation tonight, and this is going to be a tag team between myself and Sam and our two CBAC volunteers that have joined us tonight. So we'll go ahead and get started. Next slide, please, Jackie. Okay, so here's what we're going to take a look at tonight. So it's been a little while since we've brought the board an update on the work of the Community Bond Advisory Committee. So as part of this presentation, we're going to recap the timeline and the process for the committee, including the work that they did at each meeting. Once we're through with that, we'll turn it over to our CBAC representatives, and we have Don LePere and Kat Ross with us tonight, and they'll be presenting the committee's recommendation. Next slide. So I'm not going to go through this all tonight, but just a reminder that the Community Bond Advisory Committee, or what I'll refer to as the CBAC, was formed with a committee charge, which we have up on the screen, that was approved by the board last June. And in fact, just looking at dates on that, was almost exactly a year ago today. The slide that's up on the right is something that we spent a lot of time working in the committee to try to get to the sweet spot in the middle, where we were bringing the board a recommendation that not only met the needs of the district, but also the needs of the community, and also was mindful of how much the community could afford to contribute to a capital bond project. So what you're going to see tonight is the result of many discussions of the committee that really tries to get to that successful bond recommendation in the middle. Next slide. Back to schedule. Yep. So here you can see where we are in the process. We're bringing the board the draft recommendation tonight. This is the same process that we had published at the very beginning of the process, and what we'll be walking through tonight is basically all of the work that we've done to get to this point, which is info gathering, building the shared knowledge base with the committee, and then working to prioritize projects and then put together some cost and design in response to those priorities. Next slide. I'd also like to tag back to the board goals that the board put to the committee, and these are also were created by the board when we saw you last June to talk about what this process and schedule would look like. And I think it's important to go back and kind of remind ourselves of where we started. So the board gave us 3 goals for the committee work. Number 1 was to explore how facilities can accommodate anticipated future enrollment increases, and we'll be bringing the board some data on that tonight. Second is to explore how facilities can expand current educational program offerings. And third is to provide a modern, flexible environment for high-quality education. Next, please. So on this slide, I call this the who's who is on the committee. So on the left side in the blue, we have our committee members. We ended up kind of in the mid-range for the committee member goal. Our goal was 15 to 20 members, and we really wanted them to be representative of different aspects of the community. So we had different thoughtful opinions in the room. So you can see all the names of our kind of most regular attendees on the committee in the blue box. And then over on the right side, on committee support, we had district admin staff supporting with leadership and coordination, and also representing the district's needs. So we have Superintendent Rosenbach, incoming Superintendent Michael, Dan King, Jackie Young, Chris Turner, Mateo Santiago, and I was remiss in leaving Amanda off of this list as well. Then also on the school board side, we had 2 board members that came and joined us as observers to be able to represent the details of this process to their colleagues on the board. And so those were Eric Youngberg and Nick Thomas. Then Winnahaw Group has served as a facilitator and a driver of the process, and also as a K-12 subject matter expert, but we were there to facilitate. We're not there as a decision maker. We're there to help guide the committee in coming to their recommendation. And then finally, Malum Architects was an integral part of the team. They're not with us tonight, but they acted as a subject matter expert in K-12 construction. They also supported us with analysis of the district's capacity needs. And then finally, they helped us put a preliminary design to some of the committee's ideas. Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to my colleague Sam to start walking us through what we accomplished in the CBAC meetings.
Right. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. August and September, CBACs 1 and 2, we basically introductions, who everybody was, why they were there, why they wanted to participate. We reviewed the process, the bond process from start to beginning. We went through the schedule. We got some initial feedback and observations from the committee members. And then we talked about, we did an overview of the SCAP program, the State School Construction Assistance Program. The next CBAC meeting, 3A and 3B, we got a chance to tour all of the facilities. As you can see in the upper right there, that is the transportation facility. And then everybody had an opportunity to make the crossing at Belfair Elementary from there to Fowler. So that was fun. It was during a pretty busy time of the evening too. So that was quite enlightening for us that have never walked across that street, but have driven it many times. So each facility tour was led by the administrator for that facility. CBAC number 4. We basically established a shared knowledge base. So we debriefed from the building tours. We reviewed the building condition assessment, the available SCAP funding, some demographic data, which was really key to understanding that. We also discussed the Small Schools Modernization Grant. As you can see in the note, the state was considering expanding the Small Schools Modernization Grant in the 2025-27 biennium. The school districts, less than 3,000 students. North Mason applied for the grant. However, in the final budget, the state only awarded the grant to school districts less than 1,000 students. Just excluded North Mason. And Pat, you had move this over to you.
Hi, I'm Kat Ross. I've had 7 grandchildren in this school district. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 9. Forgot the other 2. 3 of them left early before graduating. 3 have graduated, and I currently have 3 at Belfair Elementary. They have all gone to Belfair Elementary, so I've been there a very long time. Not as long as the school is old. I am over 70. I graduated in 1970, so 55 years for a building to be standing is what we have looked at. It is in need of replacement due to the location on the highway. It's dangerous crossing that road. The 1970s California-style design of the building with exterior doors to most classrooms open to the outside. The condition and the age of the building, and the ADA, the steps inside the building are too steep, the steps on the outside are just dangerous, and going up to the back field, if you are in a wheelchair or on crutches, there is nowhere to really stop so that other people can go around you, so that is a problem. I want to state one other thing that's not on here. One part of that wing of the building has been there since the Navy built it in the 30s. So take that into consideration, please. 55 years old, outdated design, especially for the times that we're in. We all know what's happened up on the main campus numerous times. It's worse if you have doors to, even though they're locked, they're still open to the outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you.
Okay. CBAC number 5, we continued establishing a shared knowledge base. We had a really nice Bonds 101 presentation with a lot of math, really trying to understand how all of those data points come together. We talked about the history of the district's bond, levy, and capital projects. We discussed the difference between, or the definition of prevailing wage, the law as it pertains to public projects. And then we also went through the annual operations and maintenance budget expenditures and planning. So, and Dana, you had you wanted to talk about the current bond?
Yeah, so the current bond, you passed in 2013 in our community, and construction began in 2014. That bond was for $49 million, and we had approximately a little over $9 million in state match, so we had just barely $60,000. to $60 million to spend on all the projects that we did. We did that initially with a 25-year term. We renegotiated that bond for a lower interest rate, so it's scheduled to end in 2037. At the time of the approval of the bond, the tax rate per thousand was $1.30 for that bond. It is now down to 72 cents as of 2024. That bond, between when we started the building, or when we passed the bond and when we started the building, cost rate went up 30%. They went up even more by the time we finished all the projects. So they haven't stopped rising since we finished those projects in 2017. And so it does cost a lot to build quality school buildings for a district that you will have in place for a really long time. And this one will overlap with that, but I think you'll see that the community committee has done some really careful work in thinking about what that could look like, and preparing some information to get feedback on from the community.
Great, thank you. The next slide is the school tax rate compared to your neighbors, and I wanted to point out the $1.63, which is the 72 cents for the bonds, and then the EPO is 92 cents for a total of $1.63. Your neighbors to the north and south, Shelton and Bremerton, items 1 and 2, you can see they're significantly higher than North Mason's current bond rate. Okay, I'm going to pass it back off to
me, I
Cassie.
think.
Yes, it is back to you.
Okay. So starting off the new year, we started talking about all the things that we had learned in our shared knowledge base and how to start transforming those into priorities. We had a couple little finish up items on building our shared knowledge base. We had our community sports groups come in and present to us on athletic needs and capacities. We also looked at some updates on our school capacity and population projections. Everything you'll be seeing tonight are the updates we reviewed in January. And then we also talked about a incoming state requirement to meet clean building performance standards, and where the district kind of lands in that process. And later on, we'll talk about how we learned what we would need to do to be compliant with that process. But the rest of that meeting was talking about the group with their initial project priorities, which we'll share with you in just a couple minutes. So next slide is enrollment data. So recognizing this is some new data that I don't believe the board has seen yet, but this is what the CBAC has reviewed and what they're basing their recommendation on. And also big thanks to Malum for creating the graphics on this for us. So what we're looking at on this chart, let's start over on the left-hand side with the 2 elementary schools. The dark blue on this slide shows your permanent capacity. So these are your permanent building capacity. And then the light blue shows what you're augmenting with portables, and to be able to increase your capacity at the schools. But as we all know, portables are less than ideal when it comes to the learning environment. As part of this, the school district identified that target enrollment for an elementary school would be roughly 550 students. Right now you can see that Belfair is a little bit under that, and Sand Hill is a little bit over that. And then over on the right side of the slide, you can see your current capacity for Hawkins Middle School, North Mason High School, and then finally James Taylor High School. Moving to the next slide, we're going to take a look at how these stack up against your enrollment projections. So here we'll start with the elementary schools. This slide works in the same way, where the dark orange is your permanent building capacity and the light orange is your portable building capacity. The white line shows where we are today, and you can see that your enrollment right now, as of the 24-25 school year, is over your permanent capacity of the buildings, but is still under where you are with your portable capacity. And then you can see we're kind of have a gradual enrollment increase in the future, and you're going to even start edging up against what your capacity is, even including your portables. Moving to the next slide. This is your middle school enrollment. Here you don't have any portables, and you can see that with the projections in the future, you're still going to fit adequately in your current middle school space, even in the future. And then finally, moving to the high school slide, kind of same story here as the middle school, that your current high school capacity should be sufficient for the next 10 years of your planned high school enrollment. And then also kind of looking back to your past bond, the way that the high school was designed also allows for additions to be placed on that building at a future phase if you did need to increase capacity in that building. So this is the enrollment data that the CBAC took a look at. And when we look at items related to Belfair Elementary later, those are all based upon a 550 student enrollment for Belfair.
Hey,
Cassie.
Cassie, hold
Okay,
on.
so with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dawn to talk about priorities.
A quick question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about
Okay.
with the high school and the fact that there are a couple portables, like with the transitions program, and how is that reflected in these graphics?
Yeah, so I think the question was your transitions program and how those are incorporated into those graphics. Am I hearing that correctly?
Oh, I can answer
Okay.
that.
I might need Dana a little bit of help there. The transitions program is also related more to James Taylor than the main building, correct?
Well, actually, a transitions program is a program designed to not necessarily be housed in the permanent high school building. The idea it would be to house it in something that can be made to more approximate living in a home environment, which is why currently is at the portables down by James Taylor. When we built the high school, there group of classrooms that include the some other special needs at the end of the first floor hallway. There is capacity in there to house the transition students in that space as well, and it was built for that. But there was a specific decision made to move transitions into a self-contained, I hate that word, a separate space where it would be more like being in a home and less like being in a school building. And so that's why we're using those portables for that at this point in time.
Those numbers are counted in here.
Right, those numbers are counted in here.
Thank you.
Don.
Okay, I talked with my little brother this afternoon, and he said, keep it short and simple, because he knows I like to talk too much. It's a different slide that I'm talking, there we go. When we had the group discussions, they generally broke us down into 3 groups, and each group would come up with different ideas how we should do things. Everybody, all 3 groups, decided that we needed to meet the Clean Building Performance Standards district-wide, which is an unfunded mandate from the state, transportation building replacement or remodel, safety and security improvements district-wide, Belfair Elementary School replacement, add or modify the outdoor athletic space, and create separate gym cafeteria spaces at Sand Hill Elementary. All 3 groups basically came up with those. 2 of the 3 groups decided that the Americans with Disability improvements needed to be made district-wide. The HVAC improvements, which goes back to the unfunded mandate from the state. Additional learning space and remove the portables at Sand Hill. Sand Hill Elementary minor improvements. Add and improve parking everywhere and additional learning space at Hawkins. And then at least one of the groups came up with these: lighting for the turf fields, create separate gym cafeteria space at Belfair Elementary, which obviously if we move Belfair it wouldn't matter, improve pickup and delivery at Belfair Elementary, and improve pickup and delivery at the stadium. I think it's important that all of us didn't see these as wants, these are needs, basically.
Very good. Thank you, Dawn.
Back to me. So in February, we established some priorities, as you saw with Dawn's slide. Updated the school capacity and enrollment projects. Belfair Elementary, we discussed the current site restrictions, and then we reviewed some design options for the Belfair Elementary replacement. There were 3 site location options for that. Same thing with the transportation building, 3 as well, and then Sand Hill Elementary modernization. There were 2 different options for that. Belfair Elementary, all pretty familiar. That slide is bracketed in green. That is the parcel that Belfair Elementary sits on. Although the parcel is large, most of the site is not suitable for construction due to slopes, stream, and geologic hazards. So the area in red is what's deemed as a geological hazard zone, which means that significant earth movement can occur. No room for on-site for common flip-flop building strategy. That is, build a new building, move to new building, demolish existing building. So there's just not availability there. I don't know if anyone's aware that there are some well-known traffic issues with State Route 3 and moving through town, especially about this time of day. Further, building remodel cannot fully address the security issues and inefficiency inherent to California-style footprint. So, exterior doors, unable to move within the building. And students would need to relocate during a remodel. Okay. Back to Cassie.
Okay, I think back to me. Before we leave the Belfair site, if we could just go back there real quick to the previous slide. So the current Belfair Elementary site, given all of these restraints, and we talked about this with the committee is comfortable not exploring any design options on your current Belfair Elementary site. So all the 3 options they looked at were elsewhere on current district property. So moving to the next slides. So as Sam mentioned, with our architectural partner, Malum, we looked through multiple different site locations for all of the major projects. Just to make this presentation not be 2 hours long, the ones that we're going to bring you tonight are the CBAC's preferred option for each of the major projects, but there was a lot more broader discussion about these. So this first slide is the CBAC's preferred option for Belfair Elementary. With this slide, I'd just like to take an opportunity to get us oriented on this slide with the main campus. So over on the left side of the slide, you can see the current route of the highway coming by the transportation building. Also on this slide in the yellow line, you can see our best guess at the route of the new freight corridor, SR3 freight corridor, formerly the bypass, as well as the 500-foot setback from that road. So the district-owned parcel that is directly to the east of the stadium and the middle school is really getting eaten up by the proposed freight corridor. So we looked at this with the committee. We looked at kind of shoehorning a couple options in there, and we really kind of stepped away from trying to utilize that parcel due to the difficulties with the freight corridor. So back to Belfair Elementary now that we've all got oriented here. The preferred option for the committee for a replacement of Belfair Elementary was, and thank you for the mouse helping out, was kind of in the middle area on the main campus. There is a flat area currently in there that is sufficient for an elementary campus based on the test fits provided by the architect. And that middle area was preferred by the committee compared to a couple other locations that we looked at. This would be a 2-story elementary building, and it would serve 550 students, which would be the district's preferred size for the elementary school. So let's take a quick look at costs on this. So first off, under new construction, just the cost of the building itself would be $61 million. And then we also recognize that by locating the elementary in this location, we would displace some of the district's current programming, and that programming would need to find a new home. So we've also included an allowance for site work as well in that area, a relocation of your current ball field up next to your other ball field that encroaches a little bit into that 500-foot noise setback at the freight corridor. And then finally, you have a number of maintenance and support buildings in that location that would also need to find a new home. So we've also included some budget to relocate those. The one thing that the board may be savvy enough to see that this does not include is anything for a relocation of your current Boys and Girls Club. That would have to be a discussion with that partner. So total costs on this elementary school project is $79.5 million. The other thing I really want to mention here is that we like to talk about these as full project costs. So all the numbers that you're going to see tonight are inclusive of construction costs, development costs, or what we call soft costs. So that's all your design and engineering and permitting and project management and all those other things that go into a project that you're required to have. It also includes appropriate contingencies for the project, and it also includes an escalation factor to a projected future date for construction, because every year construction costs escalate and we need to make sure that we have that included in the budget. These are also including prevailing wage costs as well, which is one of the items that we talked about with the committee. So all of those are included in the numbers that you'll see tonight. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next major project, which was the transportation building. We also looked at multiple different site options for this one, and this, utilizing the existing site is the preferred option by the CBAC. So this would rebuild your transportation facility on the current site. That would demo the existing building, build a new building with site work and associated parking lot. And really the only way to squeeze in all of that programming is to explore some property purchase to the north of that existing site to basically give you enough room to fit all of that programming in. We looked at some options for going to the south, but just due to the road, that's the access to the campus, that was not seen as ideal by the CBAC. So on this one, for the transportation replacement, the total project cost, again, inclusive of construction costs, soft costs, contingency and escalation, is about $17.9 million.
But does not include a purchase of the parcel.
Okay, moving to the third of the major projects, Sand Hill. The main thing that this project is trying to achieve is additional classroom space to address your increasing enrollment and get rid of your existing portables, and then a gym addition to solve the problem of your current gym and cafeteria sharing the same space and creating limitations for both of those functions. So this has an addition for classrooms, an addition for a gym, and then it also includes a modernization of the rest of the Sand Hill building, as well as some associated site work. So the cost on this project is $49.3 million. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go on to the next slide. So as part of meetings 8 and 9, the committee worked through the different design iterations, and they worked through the cost component as well. We talked a little bit more about what it would take to achieve the Clean Building Performance Standard, which you'll see in the recommendations coming up. We also talked about SCAP funding that's available for all of the preferred projects, which you'll also see coming up. And then we also did a check on what the potential projects would mean when we translated those into what it would cost taxpayers, which you'll also see in the recommendation coming up. So all of these meetings are kind of iterating through design and priorities and options that really led to the draft recommendation. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dawn to talk through some key observations of the CBAC before we provide the recommendation.
I think the one constant through the entire discussion where I was involved, what is the highest priority is voter approval of the levy, however you want to word it, maintenance and operation, whatever, to maintain the current educational programs. You guys already know about all the RIFs you had to make. That's the number one thing. If we don't pass that, there's no sense running a bond issue. Number two, the committee feedback period about the potential bond project should include, we're going to feedback with the community, rigorous and extensive outreach with the community. Information should be consistent, concise, and easy to understand. I would add, so we don't have confusion about the stadium that was supposed to happen in the last bond that was never on the bond wording. And all of our stakeholders, whoever they are, should be a positive voice in the community. Belfair Elementary was built in 1970. The transportation building was built in 1975. These buildings are aged and no longer suited for today's educational needs in today's world. Security in schools is extremely important, and Belfair falls flat on its face on that. We cannot wait for our existing bond to conclude, which will be 2037, before we make further improvements. There's, can we do the next one? Here's a, yeah, there we go. The group came up with two different options. And I would say my option was number one, because that's the one I thought we had the best chance of passing a bond issue. Number two is all the other stuff that we need to do that I see no reason why we don't try that, but those are the two options. The first one, number one, is replacing Belfair Elementary. Second one is transportation building replacement, and Sand Hill Elementary upgrade the HVAC and safety security. That was a total of what, 86,900,000 on a 20-year term. The second option includes the Belfair Elementary replacement, the transportation building replacement, Sand Hill Elementary modernization, upgrading the HVAC, safety security, and building and gym and classroom addition. At the high school, upgrade the HVAC and safety and security. At Hawkins Middle School, upgrade the HVAC and security. At HVAC and security is that unfunded mandate from the state about improving our, yeah, you already know about that. Total cost, including SCAP funds, the bond would be $138 million on a 20-year term.
That's a big difference.
As we all know, tax rates are going to keep going up, costs are going to keep going up. The current existing bond that was in voted on in 2013 is 72 cents per 1,000. The existing operations levy that you will end up at the end of this year losing in December is 92 cents per 1,000. The proposed option one facility improvements for a 2025 bond projected at $1.05 per 1,000, raising that tax rate to $2.68 per 1,000. If you'll look over to the far right, Shelton's school district rate is $3.47. They're in our same county. Bremerton's is $2.98. Understanding that those are both cities with many more schools, but not with the age of the school we have that needs to be replaced. The median 2025 assessed value of residential property in North Mason School District boundary is $406,420. For the median home, the additional cost for option one is $427. Because we pay our tax rate by yearly, it's $214 for each payment, which comes out to, and we have to know this because of the way people budget, it's $36 a month. Going on to option two, again, the school rate current bond, 72 cents, the existing operation levy is 92. The option two bond would raise the projected increase to $1.58 per $1,000. The school tax rate projected would then be $3.22. Again, $146,420 for the median house rate. Option two, the additional cost would total out to $642 a year, $321 bi-yearly, and $54 a month. Now, if you subtract option one and option two, subtract one from two, I'm sorry, it's $21 difference. $21 difference in today's costs at the grocery store is 3 pounds of ground beef per month. What family of 4, basically, or more, doesn't spend that on ground beef? 18 rolls of toilet paper, same price, $21. 64 ounces of chicken wings. That's what you're asking. I can't tell you the difference of the Starbucks coffee or the small hut coffee, whatever it is, because not everybody does that. But everybody buys groceries. We all buy toilet paper. That's the number one thing. So with that idea in mind, it's only going to go up. The cost of the construction is going to go up. We all know that. So please take that into consideration. $21 a month, and that is the job that the citizens and the board have to do in talking to the community. Let them know what that's going to be. I didn't figure out the lower one because if you take the two and look at them together, you're getting a whole lot more. It's actually 49 million, and that would be the entire Sand Hill renovation. So if you say, no, let's not do that, you're gonna have a lot of people with the elementary school that has the most kids very, very upset. So please consider closely, yes, what can we afford? We all don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. We do know that it's not gonna go down in price. Look how long it took eggs to get even semi-down, and it's still not down. So please consider that when you want to go out and talk to the public. That is what you have to explain it to them as, where it hits them in their pocketbook. And unfortunately, you're talking to a lot of seniors that don't buy 3 pounds of ground beef, but also talk to your community food pantry and your food bank and find out how many more people, all ages, are going to the food bank these days because they can't afford the groceries. But this is for the children, for the future. get her done, because it's only gonna cost more if you wait and do it in 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Cass.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I have some questions and a comment. What is the timeline for the SR 348 corridor? What's the last that we?
I'm having trouble hearing the board members.
Yeah, I asked, what is the timeline for the SR 348 corridor? Do we know?
2027 is the newest date that they've told us.
Yes, to start,
To break ground.
to start construction.
Okay.
That's the state.
And they,
If you take a
multiple
left,
occasions,
coming
and
out of
the
Stony
timeline
Brook,
is
and
still a
then
little
down
fuzzy.
Victor.
Their next step is to hold what's called an access hearing, and we thought that that was going to be happening this summer, but we haven't heard anything about that.
yes, and we still haven't, they're not ready to talk to the school district about their purchase of the property yet either, so, but, you know, when all of that occurs and when they purchase that property, that funding would help fund the potential purchase of the land, or would fund the purchase of the land we are talking about for the transportation building, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because they're cut.
They're gonna have to buy that, and then we'll have that cash
That makes sense. Okay.
to
Thank
put
you.
into capital
That was
projects.
kind of one of my questions. And I know with the timeline that was shared earlier in the slide, we're kind of in a phase of, it looks like the next few months this summer. I know Christine has to get onboarded. We're in this kind of community feedback on this draft phase. And I just was curious if the CBAC has talked about how how can the community share feedback on this draft? Where is it being shared? Are we doing survey, or has that not been ironed out yet?
So, if I can, Christine is meeting each of the next 3 Wednesdays with the Levy Committee of community members as well. And over the summer, there will be some interweaving of those conversations as she gets out and gets to know the community. And there will be a plan for sharing the options and getting feedback, probably in person as well as through other kinds of surveys and stuff. But we're hearing really loudly and clearly from the committee that the people, the committee members and the district leadership, and now that is Christine and the board, will need to be out talking to people in places where they are, you know, community associations, whatever. So there will need to be, they're starting to work on a plan to set up those opportunities.
Yeah, thank you.
The committee listened to what was first presented to us, if the levy passed, to go in February. The builder that spoke to us said, don't go until November. A lot of us agreed with that. Even the people for the levy said, don't go until November with the levy vote. How you proceed with the bond vote
Yeah.
depends on the levy.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Kat.
moving parts. My last is just a comment. I thank you, Cassie, for mentioning the Boys and Girls Club. I think that it would be remiss to not involve that partner in these discussions. I've also seen in other communities where there's been a lot of success in the marriage of that Boys and Girls Club of South Puget Sound with things like bonds and levies, and getting the community really excited about supporting the kids. If they're gonna have to move, they're gonna need someplace to go, and they may need to build and do their own capital campaign, and I just think it would be really smart to strategize together.
So we
Yeah.
have started that conversation. We have had initial meeting. Dan and Christine will be meeting additionally. And we do have a couple of properties that we will still own when a new Belfair gets built. And when we have that capacity to house all kids from preschool on up in our elementary school buildings. So, there is the potential to share some of our other spaces with groups like the Boys and Girls Club to have some kind of an agreement or whatever, like we currently have. with the Early Childhood Center or even the Belfair Building. And
Right.
and there, in that building, there would be the opportunity to have a lot of different community resources there, maybe becoming kind of a community center situation. So those we just kind of started to talk to them about that at a recent meeting and plan to talk about that more going forward.
And what I would say from sitting and listening to the community, I think the Boys and Girls Club, right, and what's being displaced has been thought, but coming to like, okay, here's what we think of where it's going to go, had to come first, right, of that. Now I think we're at the point of having those discussions of, hey, here's the ideas, here's what we're doing, now what?
Right.
Right? And to Kat's point, I think she said that very smartly about figuring out what happens with the levy, and getting feedback throughout this year really needs to happen. And then based on that, I would expect the CBAC committee to take that information in and then make a recommendation to the board of when to run the bond based on that.
Right.
All of that information. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But I will say, from sitting on the committee, taking all the tours, walking through there, the recommendations that the CBAC committee, I 100% have seen every single piece of that in person. Transportation was one of the buildings that not everybody gets to see. And it was shocking walking in there and seeing where that building sits today. And that's extremely important, even though most people don't see that, their kids don't see the inside of that building. That's where all our buses are being maintained and repaired. So it really matters.
Absolutely. I want to commend you guys for the work you've done. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, Don.
I just wanted to editorialize just a little bit, very short. As most of you know, that Sandy and I did not have kids. I spent 20 months on the school board back in the 70s. And to me, the most important thing that we do as adults, although I don't consider myself an adult all that much, is educate our kids. That's why we're all here. That's why the committee's doing all the work that they did. We need to do it for our kids.
Yeah, thank you, Don, I agree.
So the elementary school
All right,
would
that
still
one,
start at the
we're
normal
good on
time.
That was that. You don't have to.
Let's move on
that be a good
to the next agenda item.
Because
Maureen, you want to come up and give us a transportation presentation here?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Transportation has been busy this year. Started the year with Fill the Bus, and they filled over 100 backpacks again, raised nearly $3,000, which was allowed to be used throughout the year to buy more supplies as needed for the students of our district. The student volunteers, the drivers are volunteers, and this is a project they are passionate about every year. So our next Fill the Bus is August 9th from 8 to 2 at QFC. We are looking forward to filling that bus again. So our next part of the year is our picnic, which falls real close. And that there we get the joy of seeing kids for the first time ride the bus, getting to explain the rules to them. They get to meet Buster the bus. We give route information to the parents, and it really helps answer their questions for what they can expect their bus rides to look like, and put faces to the voices on the phone when they give us a call. Next is our transportation mechanics. We have had our annual inspection already this year, and they received 100%, no out of services. So, the two mechanics we have, they do a lot of work. They inspect every vehicle that transports a student, including our vans. They also take care of all of the maintenance facility vehicles, the food service trucks, all of the lawn equipment They have it all on a schedule, and they get everything taken care of so it can be maintained and maintain our district. And it shows in the over 10 years of outstanding inspections that they've had. Next is our drivers, and we have a lot of fun. These are some pictures from Halloween when we just had a little fun. We had a traveling skeleton, went around to all the buses, and got to have some fun with the students as well. And then, go ahead, next slide. We have 3 van drivers, 6 small bus routes, 18 large bus routes, 5 substitute drivers right now, 3 in training. We're doing another interview tomorrow. And then we have our next training class we're looking to start is July 16th. So interviews will be completed by July 8th for anybody going to be in that class. And we've sent out a lot of flyers to all of our families trying to let everyone know that we are hiring and looking for those special humans to drive the bus, because it does take a special person to do that job. And now the numbers. So for transportation, these numbers are as of June 1st. So there's, some miles not quite in there yet. But as you can see, we get over 400,000 miles just doing our routes alone in a year. For field trips, we're down to 20,000 for this year, but that's because we have a lot of vans being driven, and that's the only way we've been able to get those done. So it's not ideal, but it gets the sports completed. Next is our McKinney-Vento and fuel. So McKinney-Vento, this is a cost that isn't even finalized for this year yet, because we have students that live here that go to districts outside of here that we are still waiting for bills for, because we can't support getting them to their school with the conflict in schedules. So, but in fuel, we've spent over 230,000. We'll end the year probably around 240 by the end of August. And McKinney-Vento is an unfunded mandate that we have to do, and it takes extra hours and extra drivers and a lot of creativity to make it happen. Our ridership is holding steady. We still count every day for our students. And as you can see, every spring it's dipped down a little bit, but comparative to the fall and winter. But overall, we're still higher than we have been. So it'll continue, and that's a main driver of our budget with the state. Student behaviors. This year has been a work of mutual support with the schools and transportation. We've been working hard together to continue with the PBIS system, but in a cohesive way. And to do that, we've continued training the drivers on PBIS. We've also been working with the schools on how we can be supported and support them with the same language, and being encouraging on both fronts, along with other ways of addressing the problems. So this year, we've had, when you look at the referrals written, 10 at the high school, mostly vaping, on the school bus. Hawkins Middle School, mostly vaping. Belfair Elementary and Sand Hill. Now that looks like a huge disparity between the two, but take into account there are only 6 buses at Belfair Elementary and there are 9 buses at Sand Hill. So that makes a big difference. And a lot of these referrals are newer drivers, which kids test the boundaries of, just like they test the boundaries of a new person in charge, a new teacher, a substitute teacher, all of those things. So that is a lot of the referrals. But we watch a lot of video, and we have been working with the schools to handle the behaviors, and hopefully next year we'll start to see a decrease in that as we're tracking it better.
Thank you.
And our wishes. Student management consistent expectations, consistent consequences. It's a continuous process, working with the schools and moving forward and finding ways to reach the kids and understanding the expectations that are expected of them on the bus. We have a new Lyft bus coming this summer. Hopefully before August 31st it will arrive. That's the goal. It's in the state, I've been told, but we haven't seen it yet. We sent out a new form to all families for transportation requests, so we can try to route better, because we've been routing with every student in mind rather than just those that need a ride. And so we're trying to get to figure out how we can be more efficient and do that better. And so that form was sent out. The drivers understood the assignment and the need, and they got over 80% of those forms back from our ridership. So that's a huge accomplishment to the drivers. And then things that are on our wish list, digital radios. We are still working off analog radios, and they are scratchy and they cannot be heard. And the one in my office, it's not working at all. So for dispatching, we have one radio in the transportation building that works right now to be able to dispatch with. So we're looking at the possibility of new radios, but that has to be digital because the station or the antenna that we currently operate off of is going to be offline within the next year. So that's on our wish list of things that we are looking forward to and hopefully will accomplish. Tablets, again, is on the wish list. If, we pass levies or get things in a better financial picture. Tablets provide turn-by-turn directions for drivers with the screen off, just audio. But it also allows for the drivers to be able to do ridership with the students' pictures. It allows for communication with the parents of where the bus is at, so they can actually set up a geofence and know that their bus is 5 minutes away and get an alert. And it gives us the ability that if we have to all of a sudden swap a driver out to a route, we can send that route to the tablet and not rely on paper and how we get that paper to them. So that's our wish list. Moving into a more technological age, but we hope to get there soon. So, thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
What is the date of the picnic?
The picnic is August 20th.
And what's the time? Do you know?
4 to 7.
And then I'm just curious, for the slide that had the routes and trips, why was 2023, 2024, why did it spike up that year and then this year is a little bit less? Is it just, what's the rhyme or reason there?
Just more trips being taken or going different locations. If they've used more buses to go places, things like that. This year we encouraged a lot more use of vans for our smaller teams.
Okay.
Or, they had to make choices of the team was going to play or not play, depending on whether they could use a van or not, because we didn't have a driver available.
Right.
We've also limited the schools to only being able to do trips between 9:45 and 2:15. So that limits where they can go.
Right.
By a long shot.
Well, you guys got anything? I was gonna say, I want to give you and your department a big thanks, because not a lot of people see you guys. They may see the drivers, but they don't see you, and they don't see the mechanics, and they don't see a lot of the people that are behind the scenes. I've had the pleasure of being down in Maureen's office, talking to her for a bit, and I'm telling you that she manages that place so well of just trying to get everything going of what the parents see. I really commend you and your staff for what you guys do, and it's just awesome to watch. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Maureen.
Maureen. All right. So the high cap program.
Savannah.
Savannah.
Ready?
Hello.
I'm Savannah Elliott. I'm the Highly Capable Services Coordinator, also District Assessment Coordinator for this past year. I came at the end of last year just to kind of give you a State of the Union address kind of for Highly Capable. I'm going to do it again. So we're going to talk about proportionality data, some SBA performance data, the data that we have received back from our junior great books implementation, how the project-based learning book study went, what have I done with family communication, and then what's coming up next year. Okay. So we had some goals for this school year. We wanted to match the state percentage of enrolled highly capable students. We were below for quite some time. We weren't finding all the students that were out there that were highly capable, and we wanted to bring our numbers up and find all of the students who had the potential. We also wanted to increase our percentages of identified multilingual learner students and students that have disabilities. They're usually, sometimes you'll hear 2E, twice exceptional learners. We were missing a lot of those students in our identification. And there was a gender gap between male and female. There was a high number of males identified and not as many females, which is researchly based normal, but we did not like the gap and how big it was, so we wanted to work on closing that gap. Okay, so for proportionality, thank you, Jackie. Thanks. Okay, so this is end of last year. We're at 7% of our total student population identified as highly capable. And then, can you go to the next slide for me? And then this is the beginning of this year from the state. So at the end of last year, we were matching the state percentage of highly capable students. The state only updates their numbers once a year in October, so I had to wait until they published their October numbers to see if we had met the 7%, and we did, which is awesome. And then at the start of this year, we went down to about 6% withdrawals, graduates, things like that. We lost about 1% of our highly capable students. But by the end of this year, we're at 8%. 8% highly capable identified in multiple areas. So we are matching, if not beating. Not to say we're just trying to find as many people as we can, but we are. We're trying to find as many students as we can so that they can have the services that they deserve and that they need. Okay. Yeah.
How do you identify as highly capable?
I'm going to talk about that. Don't worry. I got you. I got you, Emily. Don't worry. Don't worry. So this is our high cap proportion by school at the end of this year. So in June 2025. You'll see that Hawkins is quite large because we had a large 5th grade class from our elementaries who moved up into the middle school this year. So they kind of jumped the middle schools and now they're larger at the high schools. You can see the breakdown there. Feel free to take a look at it. Any questions on that? Okay. So by grade, again, you see that 6th grade group is quite large because we had a large 5th grade group in 23-24. They moved up into 6th grade for 24-25. So that's why. And looks like we have a pretty large 5th grade group coming up next year too. So that trend will probably continue. All right. And then by gender. Okay, so this is one of the gaps we wanted to close. So you can see right now we're at 113 male identified students and 71 female students. To give you a reference point, at the end of last year, we are at 105 males. So we went up in male identified students. Females, we were only at 56, and now we're at 71. So I'm super excited about that number going up on the female side because females are typically less identified than males. Okay, so ethnicity. Right now, this is another one of our goals was we were missing a lot of our racial minority students of racial minorities. And so in 2024, we only had 30 students in the multiracial category identified, and now we have 40. So we increased that by 10. We increased our Hispanic identifications by 3, and we increased our American Indian, Alaska Native identifications by 1 student. We still have some work to go. Those numbers do not necessarily match the overall district layout of ethnicities, but I'm excited that we're moving in the right direction in identifications. And then these are our twice exceptional students. In 23-24, only 3% of our students with disabilities were identified as highly capable. At the end of this year, we're at 5.4% of students with disabilities identified as highly capable. So again, and this one is our ML status. So one of our goals was our multilingual learners. At the end of last year, we had no high cap multilingual learners. At the end of this year, we have 2. So that was exciting to have 2. Meal status, paid, free, and reduced. At the end of last year, we were at free and reduced was at 30% identified, and this year at 32% if you combine the free and reduced categories. So we are making headway on that as well to find our kids who maybe are struggling socioeconomically as well. Okay, and then lastly is our domain. These are where they're qualified. So we have quantitative for math, verbal for reading. There is a category there called HiCap. Those students were identified before my time, so I was not able to quantify them into a category. We do have some students that are multiple values. They're identified in multiple areas. And then we have some students that are nonverbal, which means they have nonverbal cognitive ability that doesn't necessarily show up in a traditional way, but they have their own category. Make sense? So many students, like I said, overlap. Some students are nonverbal only because they excelled on the new assessment that we use that's nonverbal, and so we were able to find them with ease. Okay, so how did we achieve an increased equity? We switched over to a nonverbal assessment. It's called the NNAT-3, the Naegeli Nonverbal Ability Test, 3rd edition. And it is completely nonverbal. There is no reading, there is no writing, there is no language involved whatsoever. The way I explained it to students was it's picture puzzles. So you have a series of pictures and there's a pattern hidden in there, and then they choose the next picture in the pattern based off of how they see it. It gets increasingly difficult. You can give that assessment to kindergartners through 12th grades. You can give it to adults, really, if you wanted to. But it's wonderful because there's no language involved whatsoever. That assessment gives us national percentiles. It also gives us local norms, which is what the state encourages you to use as local norms. We used flexible cut scores. The national norms we look at are now 75th percentile or higher rather than 85th percentile or higher. And we use local norms whenever possible, which is pretty much everything we have a local norm for. So we're basing students off their peers. We do a universal screening in 2nd and 5th grade. So all students will get screened 2nd and 5th grade. And we use multiple data points. So we use WIDA growth, we use fast-bridge reading, we use SBAC scores, we use iReady math. So no one data point is disqualifying a student. One data point, if it's amazing, can qualify, but no one data point can disqualify a student. So not every student who's at the 75th percentile is going to become an expert. But when you lower your percentile to 75th percentile, you find more students and you give them a chance to develop their potential. And therefore, you'll have a more diverse group of students that way. So SBAC performance, this is just a testament to how well our teachers are maintaining our HiCap students and giving them the chances that they need. So we have 57 highly capable verbal students. 56 of those students scored at the highest level on SBAC this year, district-wide. So that's 3rd through 8th and 10th graders. We have 65 highly capable quantitative or math students, and 62 of those students scored at the highest level on SBAC this year. So that's really a testament to their teachers and the services that they're receiving in class, that they're able to maintain those high levels throughout their school career. So this year we started something new, junior grade books in 3rd through 5th grade at our elementary schools. So just a refresher, what is junior grade books? It's for 3rd through 5th graders currently. It happens during their win time, their what I need time, and it's specifically designed for our on and above grade level readers, although I will say that teachers who went through the training use the strategies in their regular core classes as well because they're great. So students read multiple times. It's sometimes classic literature. They will have a group conversation like a Socratic seminar. They'll be taught how to have a Socratic seminar. They'll write, and again, speaking and listening is huge for our kids right now. And they do this, typically, you can go through a story in a week. So if you think about a school year, they're doing quite a few stories in a school year. There is also a nonfiction component to it as well that teachers can use. So let's look at the data. Can you go back for me, Jack? Thank you so much. So on FastBridge, this is the reading assessment that our kinder through 8th graders take. I just narrowed it down to 3rd through 5th. I went through our data software EduClimber and tagged all the students who are actively receiving junior grade books, right? So last year, on the left, you'll see this is before we implemented junior grade books in 3rd through 5th. These students, you can see 16% were flat growth, 31% modest, 39% typical, and 13% aggressive. We look for typical and aggressive, so I combine those numbers for you. So you're at 52% of those students. These same students last year were at typical or aggressive growth. Move over to the right, and now you see those same students, but this year using junior grade books. And if you go down to the bottom, you're looking at 62% were at typical or aggressive growth. So we're seeing those students who are the most capable being able to still make that typical or aggressive growth and not become stagnant in their reading abilities. On ELA, on SBAC, on the left is the students third through fifth who receive junior grade books intervention. If you look down here, you see on the left, level 4 on SBAC ELA, which is the highest level, we're at 22%, and level 3 is at 29% for last year. If you look over to this year, we're at 38% and 35% level 3 and level 4. So there's a really large increase there of students achieving at the highest levels, and students who may not have been achieving at the highest levels previously who are now achieving at the highest levels, which is not all just junior grade books. They have amazing teachers, but hopefully that helped. Any questions on that fun stuff before I go to the next thing? Yeah.
For the 11th and 12th graders, do
Yeah.
you think that the numbers for highly capable dwindle because they go to Running Start?
So they're identified for their entire career, no matter what happens. You are identified for your entire career here. We do have a lot of movement in 11th and 12th grade, and withdrawals and transfers and moving to other places, so that probably accounts for some of it, for some of the decrease. Also, those students who are in 11th and 12th grade were identified in 5th grade when we were using very restrictive identification tools, and so there's just not a lot of them to begin with.
So you don't qualify like after 5th grade?
You can. A parent can request. They can, every fall, I open up a referral period, and they can request to have their student tested if they're not already identified, and I'm happy to do it. I've done it with 9th, 10th, 11th, 8th graders, whatever they would like. Yeah. So I also did, one of my other prongs is professional development for teachers. I did a project-based learning book study at the beginning of this year in the fall. Go ahead, Jackie. That's the book we used. We had weekly meetings because I wanted them to finish the book by December so they could put all of their things they learned in practice immediately for the rest of the school year. So I did 2 elementary groups, one at Sand Hill, one at Belfair. A total of 16 teachers volunteered for that. And I did 1 secondary group because their schedules are the same up here. And I had 5 mixes of middle school and high school teachers who participated in that. I think it went well. I'm excited to see what they use their stuff with next year. And family communication. I wanted to increase family communication. It was one of the feedback points that I get a lot from high cap families is we don't know what's going on. What's happening. So I made a parent square group of just my highly capable identified students and their parents. I do create monthly newsletters for them and send them out. The newsletters include a little bit about what's happening in the district, what new programs we're having, a little spotlight on what we're doing. I usually include for that month a list of things that are, I call it field trip time. It's things that their students might be interested in, their family might be interested in, but they may not have known that was been going on because we know outside enrichment is very, very powerful. And so not everybody is just aware of everything. So I scour through the internet and create a list of things that their kids might be interested in. And then as I find periodic enrichment opportunities, webinars, parent trainings, like, for example, the National Association of Gifted Children had their parent conference here in Seattle, so I alerted them to that, and just giving them opportunities to learn so they can also support their kids as well. This is just like a little overview of what I said. I do a spotlight feature, field trip time, and then I also do a parents corner, so I'll usually find the National Association of Gifted Children has a parent tip sheets on every topic you could ever imagine for gifted kids, and they're great. So I'll usually pick a topic and send one of those out for them to just peruse at their leisure. Creativity or social emotional or anything they might need help with. And then I do a yearly feedback form at the end of the year. I do a yearly survey. My most important question on the survey is what kind of learning experiences do you want for your kids so that we know what we should be planning for these students. And of course, as you can see, STEM is always the highest. It's always the highest request is STEM. And then acceleration in math or reading is usually second. So just kind of for everyone's eyes to see more STEM, more math and reading acceleration is really the biggest concern of highly capable parents. And then what does next year look like? Let's see. We are expanding junior grade books to kindergarten, first and second. That training is happening this summer, 2 days with an in-person trainer from Junior Great Books. I have about 15 teachers signed up for that right now. There's going to be an increased focus on cluster grouping in kindergarten through fifth. I personally went through each student by student and made clusters and worked with the schools to make sure that students are being clustered correctly. Honors classes are continuing at Hawkins. We are also slowly starting up college in the high school, so students can get college credits without leaving North Mason High School and not having to go to Running Start if they so choose not to. Or not have to take an AP class if that's not what they choose to do. So yeah, that's HiCap. Any questions or wonderings, comments?
I am wondering how the levy failure has or will impact HiCap.
I will no longer be in this position next year due to the levy failure, due to budget shortages. So that's one way, is there won't be a standalone highly capable services coordinator next year.
Who will be absorbing that?
I believe Kyle Ellis will be absorbing highly capable services for the next school year.
Thank you for the work that you've done.
Of course.
Yeah.
I love it.
Great job. Like,
Anytime.
I love when the data shows the growth.
Yeah, I was very
It's
excited about the
awesome.
data.
So
Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course, anytime. Thank you.
thank you
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
All right. So let's take a 5-minute recess. I think we need it. So we will be back at, I'll call it 8:02. We'll be back. So 5 minutes. You ready to go? Are we all back? All right. We're all back. We'll get started. 8:02, reconvene. Moving on to the board's linkage and development. We'll get on here to the teaching and learning update. Kyle,
Excellent. So,
what do you have for us, buddy?
thank you, board. We've done this series of presentations, and today we kind of wrap it up with our end of the year academics presentation for the district. So, just want to do quick reminders. A lot of these are repeats from the previous two, but just our 100% academic goals that we have set for our district, and then we broke them down by our district academic district assessment goals. So these are the iReady assessment, the FastBridge A reading assessment, and how much improvement we would see for all of our kids. And we also broke that down to MLL students and special education students to see some gap closing increases in achievement on each of those district assessments for K-8. And we decided that if we see those assessment increases for our district assessments, we would see that for SBA as well. So we kept the same goals for our SBA achievement and our district assessment achievement. So those were pretty big goals that we set to have a 10 to 15% achievement increase. And the biggest thing that we wanted to see was some really strong growth in our district assessments. And this is a good slide that shows the type of growth we've had in our FastBridge A reading. Like I've shared a couple times before, we do this now K-8. We used to only do this 2nd grade to 8th grade, but we've included our kinder and our 1st graders on this adaptive assessment as well. And this is a good side-by-side of our 23-24 growth report and our 24-25. You can see that we went from 58% of our kids on those two far right columns. That's typical and aggressive growth. You actually just heard Savannah talk a little bit about typical and aggressive growth as well. And now in the 24-25 growth report, we have 68% of our kids that are showing that at least 1 year and above, and 35% of that group is showing the aggressive gap closing growth that we would need. This is a slide that shows our achievement on the FastBridge A reading assessment. We started the year with 32% of our kids above the 50th percentile. and ended the year with 37% of our kids above the 50th percentile. And actually, this is a celebration. That's the highest we've had since we've started the FastBridge A Reading Assessment. So we finished the year with the most amount of our kids. I mean, it's not where we want it to be overall, but it's a good step in the right direction since we've been using this assessment the last 5 years to see we ended the year with the highest that we've ever had amount above that 50th national percentile. And I really had a good time making this chart for everybody because we really wanted to break down our disaggregated achievement data. And the top shows the very beginning of the school year. This is showing how many of our kids were in the level, we broke it into level 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can kind of see that run across the blue on the top there. So 1st to 20th percentile, 21st to 49th, 50th to 84th, and 85th to 99th was our level 4. So we kind of broke them down that way. And you can see where each of the groups were with the amount of percent of kids in each of those levels. And it's really, really telling when you compare the fall to the spring on our achievement. And if you just kind of look in that level 1, all students, 7.4% students left that level 1 category. 9.9% MLL improvement from level 1, and they kind of disperse between 2 and 4. And then for special ed, 8.6% of our kids kind of exited, I guess, that level 1 work. So that's a lot of improvement just right there. When we look at the achievement, some of the net gains that we saw in the achievement, so level 3 or 4 was 5.5% for all students, 3.5% for MLL students, and 5.9% for special education students. So this is some really good baseline growth. This is the first time we've really broke down our information and our assessment this way and took a really close look at, are we moving kids in the right direction, and are we doing some gap closing growth as well? So I think this is a really good indicator that we're moving kids in the right direction, especially on the A Reading Assessment. You've seen this one a couple of times. This is our new assessment, the iReady Math Diagnostic, another one that's done 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. And this is the very top is the progress to annual typical growth, and that's a median number. So that 115% is the number that's right in the middle. So you take all 1,400 kids that took this assessment, the 115% is the one that's right in the middle. So that's some really strong growth. That means most of our kids are making more than the typical growth that you would see in 1 year. And that's really indicated on the 2 graphs below. So 59% of our kids were either 100% or more in that beating that typical growth. And we really are focusing, our principals and our teachers did a really good job focusing on that stretch growth. So that's kind of like if you think 1.5 years growth is what we would talk about for stretch growth. And 30% of our kids, our K-8 students, met the stretch growth for the entire year. So that's a really amazing number, actually, because iReady, when I was working with them early in the year, they said a good goal is 20%. And so we had 30% of our kids actually reaching that stretch growth. So that was a big celebration for our staff. This one's going to be really good to look at next year because this is, once again, our first year using this assessment. So we started off the year with 11% of our kids that are already meeting the grade level standards, or at least early on. And then we finished up the year with 44% of our students at least meeting the early on grade level standards. It's going to be really nice to look at and compare fall of last year, or fall of this last school year, and then fall of the upcoming school year, and really see, are we making kind of that long-term impact on our students as they continue to go through this math diagnostic. So, but you can see right there, it's pretty clear looking at the red, you can kind of see the red and the checkered red, we are shrinking quite a bit of our students that are in, that are 2 or more grade levels below on this particular assessment. And just like we did for the A Reading Assessment, we did this with Math iReady, same percentile ranks that we put down, and we use EduClimber to kind of pull all this information. It's our student information system for assessments and all those pieces, so we're able to really get a good look at kid by kid how well we're doing. And so same kind of idea when we look at just the amount that are leaving level 1, that started in level 1 at the start of the year. This actually is our biggest celebration because MLL students started off at the year at 6.9% at level 3 or 4 and actually jumped to 18.9%. They actually met our really what we thought was like a lofty goal for our district assessment, which was a 10% achievement increase, and our MLL students actually met that. They were the one subgroup out of them all that met our district assessment goal. So yeah, I got a couple questions. I think Nick came to me at the end and was like, can we do that 10%? You know, looking at it. And so one of our subgroups, MLL, met that goal. And we have some other slides that kind of show some other MLL successes as well, but that was a really big one for us here. Not to leave out some of our 9 through 12, but I know that high school was really focused on grade comparisons. And so this one we've looked at several times. I haven't lined it up this way. You'll notice for this current year, Tri-3 is still blank. We haven't been able to do that final poll. So when I get that, that'll be at the start of the year next year that we'll be able to show that final. But this is still a good side-by-side for Tri-1 and Tri-2, and seeing some of the, I guess, decreases is the best way in Fs that we've seen, not just side-by-side for freshmen, but in sophomore, junior, and senior, but kind of that cohort as you kind of go bottom right for each of those as well, to see some really good work right there, making sure that less students, you know, doing all the work to make sure less students or at least the students are getting what they need to pass the courses. A big piece for administration and teachers and staff at the high school was freshman success. And I wanted to highlight those try ones as well, but this is a really nice look at how some of that hard work by the staff over there at North Mason High School has had an impact on freshmen in this current group. Each of those numbers that you can see, just like the last one, we'll have the Tri-3 probably a month or two down the road, so when we do the presentation. But you can see the numbers are actually lower on every single month and every single tri-period for students that are failing either 1+ course or failing a core, so a math, an ELA, or a science course. Those numbers are all kind of significantly going down compared to the 23-24. So the hard work that the staff over there at the high school is really starting to, you know, pay off for our students. And this wasn't on the one that was sent to you on Wednesday because Lexi was able to pull it on Friday. So we got some up-to-date information for James Taylor with how many with students and a lot of their big goals for their disaggregated data as well. So up here we have 63% of students finished with 6 credits or more, 13 early grads, 46% of MLL students finished with 6 or more credits, and 5 were withdrawn for non-compliance. So that could be attendance, a lot of those other pieces that are really needed to stay in the ALE program. 58% students with IEPs earned 6 or more credits. 71% of students completed year ahead of schedule due to the way that MBLC courses are set up, and 50% of students with 504 completed 6 credits or more. North Mason HomeLink, 60% on track with 6 credits or more. Unfortunately, in this one, 16% of MLL were on track. So 5 students were actually, so what their team did, rather than having them stay in HomeLink, they moved them over to James Taylor for in-person, or that might be evening support to try to reduce that gap that they had in being on track. Students with IEPs, there was a small amount of students with IEPs at North Mason HomeLink, but the ones that were there, 100% earned 6 credits or more. And students with 504 are 33% on track currently right now with 6 or more credits. We've shown this next slide, and I put this usually at the beginning of the presentation, but I wanted to put it in the middle just to kind of highlight. We've been really looking at the beginning right there at our district and school level view. Right there in the middle, those are our screeners, our diagnostics that are done 3 times a year, and then the grade polls that happen frequently. So that's really the district view. Schools use them as well, but not as frequently as those classroom assessments, and we want to get really strong in our classroom assessments, but we're going to kind of turn over into some of the state summative tests. That bird's eye view, that's the one that we look at here as well. That's only done 1 time a year. And we'll kick it off with the WIDA assessment. So this is for our MLL students. It's done late January to early March every year. You can see that we have listening, speaking, reading, writing, oral language, literacy, and comprehension. They're broken up into 4 assessments that the students do, about an hour for each assessment. So essentially it takes a whole week for a student to complete. The exit criteria is listed right there. K1, the overall score that you would need is a 4+, so you'd be in level 4 expanding. For grades 2 through 12, it's 4.7, so essentially into that bridging range. Or if you're a 4.3 to 4.6 and you score an ELA SBA of a level 3 or 4. So even if you don't get that 4.7 on the WIDA, if you get a 4.3 to 4.6 and score what would be considered a proficient score on the ELA SBA, you'd be able to exit ML services. And here is a very proud slide that we get to share, because 22-23 we had a total of 2 students exit for ML services, 23-24 9 students exit, and then this year we actually doubled from last year. We had 18 students exit, so 4.2%, getting closer. We were well behind the state average back in 22-23, but as of right now, 24-25, we're really close to in line with what the state average is for students exiting MLL service. So this is a really, really big celebration. I know our buildings did a pretty good job as well celebrating with kids. I know like at the elementary they did some sort of certificate celebration. It was really, really cool to see. So that's just a really good indicator of kind of the system that we have to support MLL students. We obviously our ML teachers they're on the front line with them working daily, but also our just general ed teachers, our paraeducators. This is a celebration for like the district as a whole, because seeing how many kids exit services, that's fantastic. We weren't expecting 18 to double, but that was really cool to see come May when the results came out. Moving into our Smarter Balanced, this was a really exciting time of the year, being able to kind of pull these numbers daily just to kind of see where we would land. And what we're going to see in both ELA and math is a slight increase, not exactly big number jumps, but you can kind of see right here, we did have more students in level 3 and 4 than the previous year for ELA. The one concerning part up there was our level 1 stayed about the same, 39 and 40%. So that's a little tough to make up sometimes when you have a lot of students working in level 1, but it is nice to be able to see that we did have an overall level 3 and 4 gain compared to last school year. This last slide for the ELA Smarter Balance is a good side-by-side. What you see is our district, 23-24 and 24-25. And then in comparison to the far right, which is the state, 23-24, and what the state had down for 24-25 when we were pulling it up through the system. Some highlights, if you take a look at the very bottom part of that chart, high school went from 32% in 23-24 to 48%. So that's North Mason High School, James Taylor, HomeLink combined. So it went up about a 16% level 3 and 4 increase from the year before, which is phenomenal. We haven't had an increase we've never had an increase like that since we started the Smarter Balance in 2015 here. So that was really great to see. Overall, like I showed before, we did have a slight increase as a district as a whole compared to 23-24 as well. Math was looking just about the same as it did the year before. There's not much to really talk through with those numbers, but it does show like a slight increase from 23-24 to 24-25. And once again, even in high school, 18%, yes, that's not where we want to be completely, but it is a 7% increase. It's our biggest increase. It's actually our first increase at high school for math since 2018 on the math assessment for SBA. So those two scores, the 48% and the 18%, were our two highest scores at the high school level since the 2017-18 school year. So those are big wins right there. And over this one, we're not seeing much movement yet. If I were to chalk it up to anything, we did have a brand new K-8 curriculum that our teachers were getting adjusted to. And just really trying to focus in on what those, and they're still prioritizing their standards. There's a lot of pieces that go into it, but I also want everybody to take a look at the third grade scores, because when we start right there, we're about 20% behind the state average when they enter third grade. I'll talk in the next couple slides a little bit of what my projections kind of look like going forward, but that's tough to come back from when we're starting with 68% of our kids below level just when they come into their first Smarter Balance assessment. So I do want to talk about what I found as some academic assessment wins. First off, we presented last month, even though it was the 23-24 school year, we had 2 of the buildings receive recognition for closing gaps. So wanted to put that as a huge win for our district, so needed that put up there. Overall, it was, from what I can see, and these numbers are pretty close to finalized for the Smarter Balance, but it looks like it's going to be our first net positive for the last couple of years at least, and only really the second time that we've had both math and ELA as kind of a net positive gain from the previous year. Like I shared earlier, we had the largest percentage of students above the 50th percentile on FastBridge, so that's our district assessment, and the highest typical and aggressive growth number since we started FastBridge as well. So that's what we're seeing as some big growth numbers. Our K2 overall growth and achievement on both the district and math rating assessments was very significant and very high. So that's why I'm thinking we've invested a lot of time and support in K2 because we know we want to get them where they need to go but when they exit second grade and are ready to achieve on those bigger assessments. And I really believe that now having our computer adaptive assessments for K1 is going to help them in the long run. I have a first grader, and she was able to go through and take all those assessments on the computer. She was scared at first about taking these big assessments, but we're making it, this is just to show what you know, and it makes it okay, a low stress for her to be able to take those assessments. So I think not trying to start them when they're second graders on their very first computer assessment, I think it just eases them in when we start them in K1, and it does give us a really good view of where our kids are at on a K8 system. What we can already see now is our kids that are in kinder and first grade are ending about, a whole half a grade ahead of where the kids started on in second and first grade this year when they started the assessment. So we're just going to hopefully see that carry over each and every year. So there's some pretty good predictions we can have with our K1-2 moving into third grade starting next year. So our disaggregated assessment data showed very substantial progress. I shared with you the math MLL growth that we saw for iReady, but just overall growth on all the different groups that we were really looking at this school year. You can see that the 9-12 F rates were just decreasing, and really I believe some of that with our SBA, especially in 10th grade, was a difference in how we assess how the assessment schedule for kids, is that the kids knew that it was more important this school year when they were coming in and taking the test. It wasn't a pull out type model for 25, 50 kids to go it was, nope, sophomore, you're coming in, you're taking a test. And I think, and really just to be able to see that 16% and 7% gain on those 2 assessments really helped us out quite a bit. And another big win obviously was the MLL students exiting, doubling from last year to this year. So going forward, we had a focus around high impact tier 1 instructional strategies this year. A lot of our discussions at the admin level and then kind of hopefully pushing out through building leadership teams were around those tier 1 instructional strategies. We want to continue that mission going forward. ML initiatives and language acquisition strategies, those in my brain go hand in hand with that focus on tier 1 because a lot of the pieces that we do to help support language acquisition, especially in the elementary world, supports all learners, and that goes all the way up K-12 as well. We really, our teams are doing a good job having focused PLCs on data, and we want to continue that work with more along the lines of those common formative assessments. You saw that was the bottom of that pyramid, of the assessment pyramid, that the teachers actually use on a daily basis to kind of drive their instruction. So we get really dialed in by grade level, by department on those common assessments. We just, like I said, adopted a new K-8 math curriculum. It doesn't just, the support doesn't stop after year 1, so we have kind of a support cycle that we had built in with each of iReady and Desmos, so continuing to support our teachers next year with that adoption. And then I want to put this up there, we need to review our adoption cycles in November. Right now, we're on a pause for our adoption cycles. I do have kind of a proposed adoption cycle update, but that's really contingent in November when we have our levy, where we run our levy for the next time. So our 25-26 goals, I shared with you many a times what our 24-25 goals with that 10 and 15% increase. A couple of us at the district office and starting with building administrators as well. We really want to focus on cohort academic growth year to year. So not just where the kids are starting, but the kind of the process and the achievement that we can do in 1 year of instruction, and to continue with our fall to spring disaggregated data as well. So big focus on stretch and aggressive growth at the elementary and middle school levels. There's a lot of good research from both FastBridge and iReady that when students hit their stretch growth twice or their aggressive growth twice, they become proficient on the Smarter Balance assessment. It's almost 80% of the time that they become proficient. So that's where we want to continue our focus, is on those big growth measures and really become the district of growth. Any questions?
I'm trying to decide whether it's a question or a statement. When we look at levy, one of the arguments that I've heard is, well, we're doing so poorly on these scores already. I just think it'd be interesting if you'd be willing to maybe meet with the levy group at some time, because I think it is important where the way you pointed out, that third grade way they come in, they're already 20% lower. But when we look at that data across until 8th grade, you know, we're only going down perhaps 10%, whereas on a state level, it's closer to 20% of a drop. So I would just invite you to consider how we might educate our levy group, and then how they might be able to take that and use that as a marketing point.
Would love to, and then I just kind of adding on to that, show them like our beginning year kindergarten data that we're going to have for math and reading, because what we see at the beginning of the year for like on our A rating is that 10% of the kids are above level when they come in on like the A rating assessment, and 15% in math. So our teachers are working hard to get them to that 30% that we're seeing on the SBA that first time around. So yeah, when we get to there, I think that's definitely what I would like to do.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question and then a request. So looking at slide 12, are there any theories as to why the freshmen in 23-24 were failing more classes from Tri 2 to Tri 3, and then realizing it's a different class, but 9th graders then in 24-25 have an increase from Tri 1 to Tri 2?
I see what you're, so the fail one plus right there.
Yes,
So
we have an increase from here to here, and then we have an increase from here to there.
I don't know yet.
Okay.
But that is a good question, yeah, because I can see that, 37 to 35 for 23, and then that went 26 to 32. So there was a little bit of an increase from those two, where we saw the decrease in, and yeah, we don't know yet for June, but yeah, I don't have one yet.
Okay, because I know we talked previously with Steve and Chad, and, you know, we were kind of joking about sometimes the sports will get the kids to raise their grades real quickly.
Yes.
But I just thought it was interesting that it happened in two different sections in the year. So.
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this goes along with, I think, what Nick was saying. If we look at slides 18 and 20, if you were just to go, oh, no, sorry. Next one. Yes. So if you look down, for some of these, it looks like it's increasing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But these are different cohorts.
Yeah.
Like, it's not
There's a couple
the
ways.
right.
Oh, sometimes you go down one
if
and
you
over
said
right.
And this year, these third graders are at 29%.
Yep.
Then they raise. But
Yep.
if you're looking at this way,
Yeah.
so maybe my request is perhaps for this one, and then like I said, 2 more slides, the same thing, is perhaps we need to be, and you mentioned this is one of your goals, right, is comparing apples to apples, which is the cohort. Can we follow that class?
Yes.
Especially when we start looking at some of the grades in terms of where were they when the pandemic happened? are we getting them caught up? Are they, does that make sense?
No, you kind of nailed it
a lot
because
of
that's exactly where we want to go, is like that cohort to cohort. So we're starting with some work on Wednesday actually with our building administrators, really diving in and trying to figure out what would be appropriate cohort to cohort goals. If all of our cohorts made a 5% achievement gain, that's a significant overall gain. And when you break it down to a class, that's one student. Like is what it kind of comes down to. If you're a 4th grade teacher, I have one more student in my class that is a level 3 or 4, and all things happen, all things stay the same. For everybody else, that's one more student achieving on the assessment is a 5% cohort gain.
And I think that would help the board. I think that would help our community, especially when it comes to the levy. Unfortunately, I think a lot of our work for the next few months is going to be kind of around this, around the levy. I think that'll help them because yes, we've heard that. I'm not giving you any more money until you raise the grades and the scores of the kids, which there's so many fallacies to that. But it's not entirely true in terms of all our kids are doing this.
And I'll add on top of that, and you and I have talked about this before, Kyle, is you got to know what the data is to be able to act, right? And, I commend you on what you've done the past few years of getting all this data so we're able to ask questions like this. Because 2 years ago, we couldn't ask that question, right? We would say, and it was like, well, I mean, we think, right? Where now we're really able to just point at a target, which is just commendable of job that you've done on that.
That's really, that's really been a lot of our work for just admin level, teacher level, is really kind of getting this out in front. And then we have a lot of smart people at our buildings too, and a lot of caring individuals that want kids to be successful. So, and they have the skills. So now it's putting the numbers out, having the right discussions, and just moving our kids forward in the right direction. So,
love it. Love every part about it. Love data. So, thanks, Kyle.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Dan, you're taking center stage, buddy.
Yes, good evening, board. I'm Dan King, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations. And I'm here to present our budget status report, beginning with the other funds. So beginning with the Capital Projects Fund, through May 31st of 2025, the month-end fund balance in capital projects was $223,727. That's an increase of $62,949. Our debt service fund ended with a fund balance of $2,713,245, an increase of $225,156. Our ASB ended the month of May with a fund balance of $410,291, which is an increase of $11,867. And our transportation vehicle fund ended with $189,146, an increase of $2,143. And let's look at our attendance. This is our June attendance. So our June 2025 FTE, including running start, was 2,225.24 FTE. And then our year-to-date average, October through June, was 2,271.32. If you add in our June TTK, we had 32 students enrolled in TTK in June. Our total FTE, including running start and TTK, is 2,257.24. So let's move on to the general fund status report. Again, through May 31st, 2025, beginning with our revenues. Let me get there on my handout here. Okay, so on the top left, you can see our total revenues actual year to date. We're at 72.91% of our budgeted revenues. We projected we'd be at 72.82%. So our revenues are slightly above our projection. Local source revenues were at 99.33%. So those are levy tax collections for our general fund and some small local revenues as well. So we're at 99.33% again. We projected we'd be at 93.93. State source revenues, at the end of May, we had received 71.43% of our state revenues. We projected we'd be at 70.30. And our federal source revenues, we were at 52.25%. We projected we'd be at 72.87. The top three sources of revenues include our apportionment through May at $17,848,588. Special purpose unassigned at $7,592,329. And our local property tax collections through May were $3,688,365. And let's go on to the big picture revenues here. So our budgeted revenues for the year were $44,019,842. Our current year-to-date revenues are on the bottom. Through May, we're $32,092,893. And we had projected we'd be at $32,053,582. So our revenues were about $40,000 more than we projected. Let's go on to our expenditures. So on the top left, it shows our projected year-end balance as a percentage of our budgeted expenditures. So our projected year-end fund balance is now at 6.42%. This is actually a big celebration. Back in January, it was a little over 2%, and we've been continuously moving in the right direction each month since. Our total expenditures actual year-to-date through May, we're at 73.75%. We projected we'd be at 76.51, so we're spending a little less than we projected. Salaries and benefits actual, we were at 72.20%. The projection was 75.44, so again, we're spending less on salaries and benefits than we had projected. Basic education, actual year-to-date, we were at 74.44%, and we projected we'd be at 77.30. Again, our expenditures are less than the projected. The top three expenditures by program are basic education at $15,257,635, district-wide support $4,940,989, and special ed supplemental state at $4,003,479. Let's look at the big picture for the expenditures on the next slide. So our budgeted general fund expenditures for this fiscal year are $44,524,307. The current year-to-date general fund expenditures amounted to $32,834,730 through May 31st. We projected we would have been at $34,066,925. So our current year-to-date expenditures are about $1.2 million less than we had projected. Next slide shows a summary of our special education funding. The allocation, when we include all our special education, for the year is $5,330,147. Our revenues through May, $3,484,464. Expenditures, $4,287,969. And the difference between our revenues and expenditures are $803,005. Then this is our fund balance year-over-year trend, and August through May, our actual numbers, and I know that's kind of tiny, but it's summed up at the bottom there in the table. And then June, July, August are projections. So our budgeted 2024-25 year-end fund balance was $2,204,491. That's what we projected at the beginning of the year when we started our year. The current projection, though, shows that our ending fund balance will be $2,858,280. So we're projected to have over $600,000 more than we actually planned at the beginning of the year. Our current month through May fund balance is $1,637,221. Now, May is a low allocation in our apportionment, so we knew that it would be lower than the previous month. The celebration is when we look at June. Our June projection, although it doesn't seem like much, 228,265, that's a positive number. Back in January, it showed that June would be 1,488,501 negative, below zero. So we've been able to move that dial and move it up to a positive number. And that's through a lot of efforts and hard work of the leadership in our school district working together. And we do still have a concern about a 228,265 fund balance in June. And later on, before I sit down, we'll be talking about a resolution to transfer some money over from the capital fund as a loan to the general fund to help add a little extra funds into the general fund for our security. So that concludes the general fund budget status report. Are there any questions at this point?
Just, I think I speak for the board that we do recognize the efforts that have been made to see that June number change about $1.2 million. So that's, I don't know, I think that's
huge.
Very noteworthy.
It's very noteworthy, and I know the apportionment, the amount of, or was that this month or last month?
This month, they're not giving us our full apportionment.
We did not get our full apportionment, so that from the state, which is very disappointing. But Dan and Dana, you guys have done a great job of maneuvering this here, even with that. So it's very much appreciated.
Thank you. So the next presentation is a preliminary budget report for next fiscal year's budget. It is preliminary. We're still working on finishing the budget before submitting it to Olympic ESD 114 for their review and feedback, and then we'll be making additional adjustments after that. And I will be presenting the 25-26 fiscal year budget to all of you in August for approval before it goes to OSPI. Beginning with our enrollment, because the enrollment really drives the apportionment. And you can see here a 10-year history of our enrollment with 2015-16 at the top of that table on the left of the graph, and then 24-25 at the bottom of the table to the right of the graph. And you can see these are averages in the table. So as I just mentioned before in the budget status report, our average for the year is 2,271. That does not include TTK, but it does include Running Start. Now, just to give you some perspective, our highest 24-25 enrollment was 2,293.92. That was back in February. We typically do see our enrollment decrease as the year progresses. Into the spring, we have early graduations and that sort of thing. Now, our budgeted enrollment, after I made the adjustment in October, was 2,283.55. So our average really isn't too far below what we budgeted. And we are really hovering at that 2,283.5 really close month after month until like April. So it's only been in the last couple of months where we started seeing the enrollment go lower. But I also want to remind you that our original budgeted enrollment, before I made the adjustment, when we submitted the budget last July, that was based on an enrollment projection of 2,357. So for the 25-26 school year, we're being more cautious. We are looking at data. We have data that shows our growth in our area and everything. But we're basing our fiscal year 25-26 budget on 2,297 FTE. And that does include Running Start. So it's quite a lot less than we started with last year, because we want to be careful. We're hoping that, we really want to avoid having to make an adjustment in October like we did this year. Okay, so let's move on to the each fund, starting with the general fund. I'll briefly just talk about what the fund is all about, what its purpose is. So the general fund receives its revenues through apportionment. School lunch program and transportation get their own allocations. Categorical funding, that's like our title programs, for example, special education. We get grants. We use those funds for staff salaries and benefits and our MSOC costs, basically all of our operating costs. Our beginning fund balance is projected to be $2,858,280, and that was the same number that we just looked at in the budget status report for our August month-end, year-end. Our revenues and other financing sources, we're projecting $42,109,344. Our expenditures at $41,894,206. We transfer money out of the general fund to the debt service fund to pay our non-voted debt, so that's going to be $334,713 next year. And our projected ending fund balance at this time is $2,738,705. I think when I present this again in August, we're going to see some different numbers. It'll be closer to our actual, because there's still a work in progress as we're working on the budget. One of the things that's really important is really identifying what our anticipated revenues are. And that's a little tricky right now when we're getting different messages around federal funding, for example. So also, when we pass a levy, we expect our revenues to increase. And you know, that amount is yet to be determined. But at that point, we will be doing a budget revision because we're going to want to make sure that we have the capacity and the authorization to spend any more if we plan on spending more. So we just need to be prepared for that. Our capital projects fund is it's used for construction of capital facilities, land acquisition and capital construction, and major improvements to capital facilities. We receive revenues from transfers in from other funds, like the debt service fund, capital grants, housing impact fees, and interest income. We're anticipating the beginning fund balance to be $182,951. We anticipate receiving revenues, mainly in impact fees and also interest earned, of $226,000. Our expenditures, we plan on about $240,000 in expenditures in the capital projects fund, leaving us a fund balance of $168,951 at the end of next fiscal year. Moving on to the debt service fund. This fund is used to pay our voted and non-voted debt. We receive the revenues through local property taxes, timber excise tax, as well as state forest funds. We transfer money in from the general fund, for example, to pay the non-voted debt, and we also receive quite a lot of interest income in this one because there's a pretty large fund balance for most of the time. The beginning fund balance we will be at or very close to $2,725,245. We anticipate $3,164,979 in revenues. Our expenditures paying our bond, our voted and non-voted debts, will be $3,336,692. And that should leave us a fund balance of $2,553,532. Moving on to the transportation vehicle fund. Now the fund balance that I just shared with you, current, is a lot more than the $39,178 here. But as you heard Maureen say, we have a bus on the way and we're gonna have to pay for that, about $150,000. So that's gonna take away a lot of our current fund balance. We do plan on ending the year though with about $40,000, $31,178 I have here. Revenues and other finance sources. This is our transportation depreciation fund. So we get money for bus depreciation to replace our bus fleet as our buses age and reach full depreciation. So this money is used just to replace buses. You can use it for major repair of school buses, but we really haven't had to do that. It could happen, but our focus for this money is to replace buses, old buses with new buses. So if we were to buy 2 new buses next year, we would be spending about $344,926. I want to make sure we have budget capacity to do that and approval. We may or may not buy 2. We might buy 1, we might buy none, we might wait. So we'll see, that's yet to be determined. But I want to have that budget capacity there so that we can do what we feel is important to do. So, and right now we're exploring different options for the kinds of buses that would buy and all that. If I were to budget lower than this and we end up wanting to spend more, we would have to come back and do a budget resolution. So we want to make sure that we start the year with the approval and authority to spend as much as we think we would like to. And then that would leave us an ending fund balance of $18,650 if we were to use those funds next year to buy some buses. Now the ASB budget, this is really the student body's budget. The school district, though, is responsible for this budget, and we are audited on the procedures in managing this budget. This budget is for extracurricular activities. They're cultural, athletic, recreational, and social in nature. They're not used for academics. The revenue comes in through ASB cards, gate receipts, athletic fees, concession stand donations, and fundraisers. Our beginning fund balance will be at around $413,891. We're anticipating $429,089 in revenues. The expenditures should be at around $438,219, leaving a fund balance of $404,761. I just want to end with this quote on the next slide, because I think this is really important. It's not just numbers. The budget is not just a collection of numbers, but an expression of our value and aspirations. Really, how we use our resources really is a reflection of what we value, what we believe in, and our goals. And in our case, really, in how we're supporting our students and serving them well. So as a finance manager, I always have that in mind, and I know I'm not the only finance manager in the district. Many of our school leaders, our principals, our directors, they have budgets, and they all have that same mindset as well. We always want to use our resources carefully and always in the best interest of what's best for our students and what our goals are. Are there any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
It may be a remedial question, I feel, but we talked about possibly updating the radios. Would that come out of the transportation budget, or where would that? I was just curious about that for my own sake.
Great
I'm sorry.
question. So the transportation department has two budgets really. They have the transportation vehicle fund for vehicles, and then for things like their operational costs and salaries and benefits of their staff, they have a transportation allocation that goes into our general fund. So those costs are within our general fund.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you
That's a good
for
question.
clarifying.
Perfect. Anything else? All right, Dan, down to, thank you for that part, down to your resolution here.
Okay. So although we're all happy, well, I think we're all happy that we have $228,000 to expect at the end of June in our general fund, but we want to add some cushion to that. We want to, for safety and security of our fund balance and our cash flow, to have more in there, because we don't know the exact, we can have an idea of how much we're going to get in our apportionment, but we don't have the exact number. And so to make sure that we have enough to cover our expenses in June, there's different kinds of things we can do. One is just really pay careful attention to our accounts payable. And if we needed to withhold and wait on making a payment on a large invoice, we could do that and things like that. Salaries and benefits, though, we cannot do any holding back. We have to make sure that we're taking care of all of our employees. And so that's the main one. And so for that reason, we want to add a little more to our general fund. Now, there are 2 RCWs quoted here on this resolution that show that there is state law that says that school districts can transfer money out of their capital projects fund and into their general fund. And as a loan. As a loan. And so it's known as an interfund loan. It's temporary. It has to be paid back in less than 1 year. And actually, we have to pay it back by August 31st. If we had borrowed this back in October, we'd have more time to pay it back. But we're borrowing it right now. Now, one of the reasons is our June apportionment is expected to be the lowest apportionment. Well, May is lower than June, but this June might kind of be as low as May because the state is withholding some of our allocation as well, and they said, we'll give it to you in July. And so typically we get 22.5% of our whole year's allocation in July and August. That's almost a quarter of it, even, in the summer, after the students have left for the summer and the staff. It's going to be even more than that this year. It's going to be closer to 22.75%. So what this will do for us is it will allow us to transfer $185,000 out of the capital projects fund into the general fund. And then in July and August, when we have greater amounts of apportionment received, we'll transfer that money back into the capital projects fund with interest. We have to pay interest on that back into the capital. Because if that money was sitting in capital projects, it's earning interest for that fund, so we have to transfer the interest as well. So this resolution is just asking for the board to approve that transaction, and then I will ask the county, if it's approved, I will ask the county treasurer to move those funds over, and then in July or August, we'll move it back. Are there any questions?
This isn't a question, this is more for future conversations, in particular our community, is we are not the only school district that is doing this. So it's not because we mismanaged our funds or miscalculated apportionment. There are many, many other districts that have passed this or are going to pass this to basically lend themselves money. And so I don't want a rumor started that something happened and that's why we had to borrow money. So,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
No, and I think that's a really good point because frankly, when OSPI actually didn't manage their funds well, and so all of the districts were notified that they would not get the apportionment they could expect in June because OSPI had no more authority to pay people that money. So it was very frustrating for many of us, and a lot of districts are, as you said, taking this temporary step to borrow from ourselves until the money is returned to us in July.
All right. So, do I hear a motion to approve Resolution 18G25 Interfund Loan Capital Projects Fund to the General Fund?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 18G25 interfund loan from CPF to the general fund as presented.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving Resolution 18G25 interfund loan from Capital Projects Fund to the General Fund, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. None heard. That passes.
Thank you.
So thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for all your hard work.
You're welcome.
All right. Now, moving on to the WASDA legislative rep. Due to Arla. Huh?
Notice that on the agenda.
That time has come.
Not, but if Arla's not gonna be here, we need to have another.
Right, we need to have another ledge rep
It's a
for
2-year
next
term.
year. So, I'm trying to think. I will throw my hat in the ring if you guys would be okay with that, unless either of you two want to do that.
It's like, I'm full.
Very interesting. And if you have an interest in the legislature.
I think it'd be a great way to learn, like, the state level.
Yeah, I have a definite interest, but at this point in my career and other things for the next 2 years, I wouldn't be able to give it my full attention.
That's fine. Yeah, like, I'm fine doing it.
Is there any to nominate?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Someone's got to nominate me.
Okay.
Because I can't nominate myself.
I feel like you kind of just did. Okay. I nominate Eric Youngberg to be the WASDA legislative rep serving June 2026 through possibly June 2028.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Then that's a done deal. I will be the ledge rep next year. Yay. All right, now moving on to the monitoring reports. So E1, you do not write one, so we don't have to take any action on that, correct?
We don't, but I do anticipate that when you do your
Yes.
retreat, you guys will be looking at the mission with
Yes.
Christine.
Yes, 100%. So, do I hear a motion?
You don't have to on that one.
Oh, no, not for that. I'm talking ER4.
Oh, sorry.
For ER4, do I hear a motion to find the superintendent in compliance of ER4 school engagement?
It's E4, right?
Yeah, E4.
Yeah, I make a motion to find the superintendent in compliance with E4.
All right, any discussion?
I just really liked the breakdown of all of the different field trips. I've not ever seen something like that before, actually.
Yeah, I got a lot more individual field trip information when I asked the same question as every year this year from the principals. So I thought that was really interesting, and you would enjoy seeing that.
Yeah, I liked that.
Yeah, I like how thorough this is and how it's breaking a lot of this down.
Yeah.
To the individual schools is awesome.
Yeah.
Because it really shows a lot. So, especially when I'm seeing the college career partners and all that good stuff there, so.
Yeah, Deb turned in really valuable information on that this year.
That's great. All right. All in favor of finding the superintendent in compliance with ER4 school engagement, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, any opposed? Hearing none, we approve that monitoring report. So policy review, we don't have any policies to review this board meeting, so on to the adjournment. Jackie, is there any other?
Nope.
All right. Moving on to the good of the order. Dan, I'm starting with you for a reason.
Well, that's fine. I have something to share. So, just last week, we received a card for all of the retiring employees in the district from Jean Bray and Mana Haugen and the North Mason Coalition of Churches. And so it's signed by all of the members. And Jean included a note that I wanted to read to the board. So it's to Jackie. It says, "This is a card from their board, plus Mana Haugen and myself of North Mason's Coalition of Churches and the Community Coalition for the superintendent on this occasion of her retirement, as well as practically all of this summer's retiring employees who have assisted the North Mason Coalition at one point or the other over the years in the buildings and on the ground, i.e. Sharon Olson, LOL. In 2020, when school had to be closed, Ty and Don delivered all of our backpacks for kids. Thank you for Ty Connell's initiative on that. And Mrs. Bode and Mrs. Crabb helped for years with our paperwork for our programs. I am for certain Cindy and Carol also played roles as well. Thank you and best wishes to all of the staff, the North Mason Coalition of Churches and Community.
Well, this is the, I just want to commend you, Dana, on, I'm not a big thing giver and I'm not a big part of that, you know that, but you've gotten us through a lot in this 11 years. You know, making it through COVID with all the challenges. Of course, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't perfect everywhere. But the big part is we got through it. You know, going through this transition of hiring a new superintendent, that was not an easy thing. And for you to kick it off and give the board the tools that we needed to go out and find Christine, we could not have done that a different way with the way that you kicked that off, with bringing Tim in and sitting us down and talking. I know all of us, I think, have talked to you from time to time, like, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you think about that? And, you know, I really appreciate how you've handled yourself with grace and with just providing the information that we needed, you know. And there's been tough times, right? And I know that agreements and people can get mad and, you know, people can be happy, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, you've really led us through a period of time in this district that was not easy. And I commend you on that.
Thank you.
For doing that. I know I told you that sitting on the stage when we were sitting at graduation, and, you know, I thought that was really a great ending speech for that, so thank you. So past that, thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate the opportunity.
I have two things. One, I will continue the appreciation for Dana. So at your retirement party, I thanked Anne for her work. But that would not have been possible without you. And thinking over the many phone calls and emails that I got during the pandemic, and looking at all the other districts that were struggling, I have told so many people, North Mason did an amazing job caring for its students and its community during that event.
Thank you.
So many students and parents and districts and teachers all across the state were hurting, and I just kept giving them ideas that North Mason was already doing. And while I know you still received some complaints, it was because people were scared.
Yeah.
And you, your staff, that is just a testament to the dedication to the students and the community. And thank you for leaning on your staff and leading them as well. Very, very much appreciated. I don't know that many people know how much other districts were struggling and how we were really just, you know, at the apex of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. At the graduation, we had a student speaker who spoke 3 languages, and it still just like sits in my head and my heart. I think that is a beautiful example of the strength that our students have. For someone to have a language in their home, go to a school where they need to learn a second language, and then go to another school, another country, and learn a third language.
it's amazing.
Yes, it's humbling. And again, it is a great example of our community, and I think of our district for helping and supporting students like that. And I appreciate even, you know, the high cap presentation about saying that some of our assessments are not in a language, they're in pictures. Because in that same job where I would use North Mason as an example, I would get districts calling me asking, can we please buy online classes in other languages? Because we have amazing smart students. We know they know this stuff, but we give them assessments in English, and that's what's holding them back, is just the language barrier. And so for this amazing student to stand up and speak in 3 languages, it just, I thank her, I thank her family, I thank our community and our district for that, for getting her there.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Way to put it on me. I just wanted to say thanks because I've been in this district since kindergarten, so I was able to like see it all, live through it all, and I just walking through the grad walk through Belfair Elementary, it did hurt my heart a little bit to only see one teacher I only had. So it's like, I know they were a lot older, so they retired, most of them. But it was very nice to see that there's so many young teachers too, because at Belfair, there were a lot of older ones. It was just nice to see that there's like a new engagement and a new way of teaching, and to see that all of the data and the stats, to see that they're improving. And it was just so surreal to walk through Belfair Elementary again, because it had been so long. And to kind of hear that it's going to go away and then get rebuilt is a little disheartening, but I understand for really good reasons. And it's just a new era in like graduation and moving on. Everything comes to an end, but everything has a new beginning as well. And I'm very fortunate to have been a part of the board to see education on a different level, because I only see it in the classroom or in the lunchroom with the principals, but to be on the board and to see what really goes on and what goes on behind the scenes, it takes a special type of person and a different group and committed people to make a school run, because there's so many different aspects in it, not just what's in the classroom. So thank you guys.
I just have a couple things, but the first thing I would just say is I hope that our actions as a board have shown our appreciation that we have for you and the respect that we have for you and what you've accomplished. But I know we'll have more time for that, a little bit more time for that, but I just wanted to have 2 comments about REACH. One of the things that came to my attention during this was during the bond meeting, we had a resident that basically stood up and said, hey, my community group has feelings and thoughts, and I want somebody to be there from the school board to talk to them about it. And it was interesting because I sat there and I was like, well, I've reached this group, I've reached this group, I've reached this group. I didn't even know about this group. And it was just an eye-opener and education for me, and we're all continually learning of just additional groups that are out there, additional ways that we can continue to, if time allows, if our busy schedules allow, to continue to reach out and to try to connect with these community members, to hear both the positives and the negatives, the challenges that they have and the concerns that they have. So that was an eye-opener for me. The other comment about REACH that I wanted to make is, in attending graduation and attending, middle school celebrations and even, elementary school field days and celebrations, I was surprised that I had a few, I'm going to say young, most of them I look at you as a peer. You're old enough, you're mature enough, but I look at these little elementary kids and I'm like, these are kids, these are practically babies. But to have them and hear them talking about how the levy affects them and it not passing, and hearing them talk about how, well, because the levy didn't pass, we won't have this anymore. Or whether it be sports, or whether it be a teacher, or whether it be, I even heard a little kid that was sad because apparently his family might be, or his best friend's family may be leaving to seek better opportunities, whether they were employee. I didn't delve. But it was an eye-opener to me, because I've very much been focused on the level of how it affects our community, how it affects the adults, how it affects the teachers, how to reach out to those that may not support it. And of course, we see how it affects a student on a program level, but to see how it affected some of them on their individual, their daily life level, that was an eye opener and kind of a tough thing to absorb, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
just looking for ways that we can continue to reach out.
That's great. I don't even know how I follow all of you guys right now. It's been such a journey, and I don't know, I feel like it's really surreal to think about. I remember being in the room and they voted for you, and here we are. Grace Under Fire, that's what I think of when I think of you. The things that you've brought to this district, like the medical clinic, there are no words. Thank you for everything you've done. Graduation was wonderful. I did my first field day. That was really crazy and intense. And my kindergartner declared that field day is the worst day of his kindergarten life. And it was just like, it was a lot. I was like, oh man, this is a really hot day. There's a lot of things happening. I saw a lot of meltdowns on the field, but that's school. That's the end of school. I am the new co-president for the Belfair Elementary PTA. That's going to be a fun journey, and lots of like that.
Good. All right, well, on to our board self-assessment. Leanna is not excused tonight, so Nick, you got it.
I hope you don't mind. I'd like to summarize these just a little bit into two main categories. As far as general meeting behavior, I rated the board's meeting behavior as satisfactory. And obviously, if anybody has questions or differences in agreement, I'm open to discuss those. And for the second group of governance principles and review, I felt that we did follow the governance principles, so we were ranked yes in all of those, and overall satisfactory as our board self-assessment.
Very good. All righty. Our next board meeting will be on July 28th at 6:30 p.m. right here in the admin boardroom. So with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys.